Welcome to the Lawyerist Podcast, a series of discussions with entrepreneurs and innovators about building a successful law practice in today's challenging and constantly changing legal market. Lawyerist supports attorneys building client-centered and future-oriented small law firms through community, content, and coaching, both online and through the Lawyerist Lab and Accelerator. And now, here are the co-authors of the Small Firm Roadmap and your podcast hosts.
Hi, I'm Sam Glover.
And I'm Stephanie Everett, and this is episode 276 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today, I'm talking with Amy McGarry about creating processes for your team and clients.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Smith AI, LawPay, Back Office Betties, and Text Expander. We wouldn't be able to do the show without their support, so stay tuned. We'll tell you more about them later on.
So, Sam, today I thought we'd talk about some planning and what firms should be thinking about with planning.
Yeah, I assume this is a hot topic of conversation as everybody tries to figure out what to do, and there's nothing much else to do or think about right now. So I assume figuring out how to plan is high on everybody's list of topics.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to cover this a little bit in depth with a coaching call in a few weeks with one of our labsters. But it does feel like everyone is a little stuck right now, rightfully so, because it's really hard to plan for what it might look like in 6 months or a year, or even really, let's just say 3 months, when we don't really know what the world's going to look like.
Yeah, and to be fair, like there's all kinds of predictions out there, and people have asked, been looking to us for some of those as well, but the reality is the economy is being reshaped underneath us, and nobody really knows what that's going to look like. And so I think your tip number one is focus on the near term, the next 30 days or so, and put your long-term plans on hold, because stuff's going to change and timelines are uncertain, and it's better to just focus on what you can more or less depend on.
Yeah, I think you've got to kind of break down, where is your business right now? Where do you need it to be? Everyone's experiencing this so differently. Some firms are crazy busy right now because clients really need their help through this. Some are seeing a pause as people are just sort of putting life on pause. But you can't really do that with your business. You need to keep moving forward.
Figure out what you can do right now.
Yeah, so there's some things you can do. And a lot of people are using this downtime, if they are experiencing downtime, to their benefit. Like, what can they clean up back of how, what are those projects you've been putting off because you've never had time to do it? Like, let's get that done. Let's clean up the back of the house. Let's get, rethink your client experience.
I will say, don't do nothing. Like, I've been demoralized to hear from a number of lawyers, including some labsters, how frustrating it is to work with other lawyers who are like having away messages and out of office messages and aren't willing to work on Zoom and are forcing people to come into the office and are struggling to answer their email somehow. And like, don't be that. Like, there are definitely things that you need to do to adapt, and just freaking do them.
And you may find some new things that you like that you are going to keep. I got an email from a judge, or it was on a Facebook group that I'm in, from a local judge who I know. And she was like, hey, everybody, these Zoom hearings are actually pretty cool. We've done some. She gave examples of which ones they've done. She's like, hey, we're using breakout rooms so we can sequester witnesses. You can use a breakout room to speak with your client. Like, she was sort of pitching, you don't have to, keep your case stalled. Like, I'm enjoying this. And I was like, oh, this is great, because this is the kind of thing we've been trying to push for years. So it's exciting. And so, yeah, if you're in that, your cases don't need to stop. Your clients still need you.
Yeah, if courts are willing to work with you, if you can drag opposing counsel or other parties into the negotiation Zoom room, do it. Keep things going. That said, we've also heard from a few people who are like, what if I just change my practice area and do a complete left turn and do something else?
Yeah, and there may be some opportunities for that. I guess I would just caution you to approach that like you should any major business decision, which is with data and thoughts and facts and intention. So again, that's, a theme of our book and a theme of everything we do is that you're being intentional with your business. And so if you're one of these folks that like I've talked to who are like, hey, maybe I should add bankruptcy. That seems to be a hot topic right now. Okay, well,
Right.
let's work through that. What would it take in terms of resources for you or a team member to get to up to speed in bankruptcy? How many hours is it going to take? Are you going to
Hmm.
need to train? Are you going to need new software? Like you can put a number on that cost, and then you can do some forecasting. How many what would you charge for a case? What would that look like? What's the profit margin on doing those cases? How much time would it take you to recover? Like how many clients would you need to bring in to recoup those initial startup costs? And then you can make some business decisions, and there may be opportunity there. But again, you should be thoughtful in deciding if that's the way you want to go. And then if the answer to all that analysis is yes, then awesome. Now make a plan to tackle it.
And above all, stay flexible, right? Because stuff's changing. You have to stay flexible and adaptable. So now is a great time to make the changes that you can make that allow you to adapt more quickly, like being mobile, being paperless, using Zoom, but also reevaluating your major, fixed expenses like rent and things.
Today's podcast actually is a coaching call that I had with Amy, one of our labsters, and we're going to talk about how she can put more systems and processes in place. And now's a great time to be doing that. Like
Hmm.
that's the back end work that is going to really help with that profitability going forward. And you want to be lean and mean and profitable right now.
Hmm.
So make sure you're kind of looking at everything with fresh eyes and looking for the opportunities.
Lean and mean and profitable. I
I know
like that.
where do I come up with this stuff? I don't know.
We've got a brief sponsored conversation with Maddy Martin from Smith AI, and then Stephanie's conversation with Amy, where hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about being lean and mean and profitable.
Hi, I'm Maddy Martin, the head of growth and education for Smith AI, a virtual receptionist company for calls, website chat, text answering, and Facebook message answering.
Hi, Maddy. Welcome back to the podcast. So today you had a great idea of addressing probably what's on a lot of people's mind, which is how to adapt, but how to adapt in a way that doesn't get us stuck forever or maybe isn't going to be useful after we all go back to some semblance of normal. And so your idea was that firms could implement some low risk, fast start, easy to implement options. What do you mean by that?
Right. So, thankfully, the cost and access to technology and resources is lower and greater and easier than ever. So, when we think right now, where are we? Where are firms? Many are struggling. Many are trying to find ways to grow their resources, whether that's making the best use of their time or growing revenue in new ways. And there are a few really proven solutions that I wanted to share with you today.
Why don't you start with that? What's your first idea for what lawyers can do?
So, one of the most immediate needs that they can do to address just bringing in revenue to the firm is being extremely responsive to any lead that comes through, as they're more precious than ever. We want to make sure that we know that responsiveness is the single greatest indicator of retaining a client.
Mm-hmm.
So, if your bandwidth is thin, your kids are at home, you're taking care of multiple generations,
I'm raising my hand, yes.
you're doing the next thing that I'm going to recommend, then you want to make sure you have receptionist service, but one that is flexible and month to month and doesn't lock you into a long-term plan, right? So something that you can use and then you can adjust based on where the economy is in a month or a few months.
I'll be honest, I don't know how anybody could get along without something like that right now. Like if you're single and on your own and home by yourself, maybe, but I just had to mute a minute ago because my daughter finished her work and wanted to know if she could watch some TV. So like it's right now, there's no way to get anything done without being interrupted.
And why should that penalize your business or the person who's looking for service, or at least wants to know, are they contacting the right firm? So we can do all of that and we can screen and schedule and do intake. Now, what you may be busy with is maybe not childcare, but trying to get some revenue in the door with a service like law clerk or lawyer exchange, where you can actually do side work for other firms that may be busy right now and bring in revenue just as a stopgap solution. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we see attorneys listing projects on there, but don't forget that you can also play on the other side of the marketplace to bring in revenue when you need it most right now.
You can be a lawyer working for other lawyers who might be on the opposite side of this and have more work than they can handle and really don't want to let go of their leads right now.
Right.
And obviously being able to be responsive in the face of that so that while your head's down working on something, the phone isn't going unanswered. What else? What are some other tips for ways lawyers can take advantage right now?
So I think one of the main things is just streamlining and being responsive and carrying out tasks more fully when they sort of come to your attention or on your plate. So one of the things that we really take seriously is when we're on the phone with a new potential client, that we have the ability to screen and do basic intake and schedule that person for a call with you if we can immediately transfer it, so that there's peace of mind, so that there's no phone tag. And if you don't already have a calendaring solution, that makes it very hard for us to carry that work out. So what we recommend is signing up for something for free, by the way, with Calendly or Acuity that plugs into whatever base core calendar system that you have set up, whether that's Google or Outlook or 365. So those are accessible to you. And another sort of really easy tool and automation is Text Expander.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically allows you to, with a couple clicks or taps on your keyboard or phone, pre-populate with an entire email the messages that you most commonly send. And that can significantly free up your time on those repeat communications that then free you up for doing whatever it is you're doing on Law Clerk or doing client casework.
One of the things I like about all your tips, and maybe the silver lining in the pandemic, is that making these improvements to your firm are long-term improvements, that they would have made your firm better if you made them 3 years ago. They're going to make it better if you do them now. So why not implement them now? And you'll float through this a little bit easier and come out the other side even better. To learn more about Smith AI and make sure that your firm is staying responsive during the pandemic, visit smith.ai. That's the URL, smith.ai. And you can use the code LAWYERIST100 to get $100 off each of the reception and the chatbot services and free white glove setup. Maddy Martin, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Amy, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. So, fill me in, catch me up. Where are things and how are you doing?
Well, we are doing well over here. Started the new year pretty crazy because it's season down in Southwest Florida, so which means all our snowbirds are back. So we are opening up files like crazy, which is good and bad. So trying to keep our processes in place and doing all of that. We are working at getting our Clio finally built out. We're about almost done with the estate planning built out, with connecting, like we talked about before, with the custom fields and everything. So coming over from Grow into Clio Manage and then into the templates. So hopefully that will be done soon. I have a college intern who is waiting to leave for her semester overseas, helping me with that. So she leaves in a week and a half. So her goal is to get the estate planning done. The probate we had worked on in the fall, so we're pretty good on that. And then we just have to finish up the elder stuff. But now we have a much better understanding of how it all kind of links together. So that is good.
Great. So what's on our agenda today?
So our agenda is just kind of talking about what I need to do for 2020 and the best way to stick with it, because I have a problem of having all these high, like, I want to do this, I want to do this. And like anything, I start getting bogged down with real work. Not that the other is not real work, but you know what I mean, legal work. And the other stuff just kind of falls to the wayside and I never get it done. And then it's back on the agenda for next quarter or next year or whatever. So just trying to figure out the best way to be able to hit those goals and to be able to get these extra projects and things done around here. That's kind of where I would like to do. And I know you and I have kind of talked about that a little bit before, but now I just need to figure out the best way to implement it so I can stay on track with it.
Got it. So is part of the struggle prioritizing what's next?
Not as much prioritizing what's next is staying on track with it and finding the time to do it. Because some of the stuff I have to do.
Right. So with that, then, I guess, what is the next priority for you, for your business, that we need to tackle this quarter?
The next priority for me is what happened is a few years ago, I moved from QuickBooks to Xero, hired one of the bookkeepers that does it for attorneys out there in the legal world, had them do it, and it just broke down sometime last year when our guy left. Nobody told me. Our bookkeeper guy that was appointed to us left. I was wondering why our stuff was never really updated, though I was paying them. And then the problem was also I just never liked Xero, and I hated how they did the trust accounting because it was showing up in my accounting reports. And I kept telling them, we got to get this separated out. I just don't like doing the reports this way and things like that. And then I went back to my old accountant, my old CPA, and she hated Xero too and says, no, this is not working. So the good thing is I never got around to turning off QuickBooks, but nothing, of course, was going in there from 2018 forward. So I went back into QuickBooks because it was within 24 months, because I did this right before the end of the year. I was able to link it to my bank accounts and bring everything over. So it's in, but let me tell you, I have sorting through all of those, each individual transaction. I'm almost thinking it would have been easier to just enter them in individually than to match them up and bring them over. But anyways, I am just trying to tackle that project. I have an in-house bookkeeper. Well, she wasn't a bookkeeper. She was doing all our billing, and she has said, hey, listen, since we're getting rid of the other one, I can work more hours in the evening and do what they were doing. I'm like, perfect, because she does that during her daytime job. So I was like, okay. And she understands QuickBooks and all that stuff. So she was like, well, do you want me to help you moving the stuff over? The problem is she doesn't know all the transactions yet. And so I've been kind of just doing it. And then on the trust accounting side, when I was at the Clio conference, I talked to the people at TrustBooks. So I'm using TrustBooks for just the trust accounting. So I'm not bringing anything over from the trust. That's going to stay in a completely separate application and then do the regular bookkeeping in the QuickBooks. I have to undo the mess from 2 years ago.
So it sounds like what you're saying is at some point in 19, the outside accounting firm stopped updating Xero?
Well, they were bringing things in, but they weren't balancing the accounts, and they weren't doing the reports and stuff like that.
Like sometimes messes are so bad that, it's kind of impossible to clean up. So I'm just kind of curious, is one option to start QuickBooks effective January 2020, because you just start a new year, finish out Xero in 19, and then just have the systems be clean that way? Or
I guess I could do that for starting January 1st of 2019, because we need clean books for taxes.
Right. That's why I was hopeful that Xero was, it still needed some cleanup, but it doesn't need as much cleanup.
The accounting firm says that they will clean it up and get it, but it was such a mess trying to do 18, because I filed an extension like I always do. And so just working with them in the late summer with my accountant trying to get stuff, that's when she's like, no, this is not working. And so since I had never turned off, I guess my thought is, but the problem is I can't do reconcile, is I could skip 18 and go back to it whenever and start with 2019, but then I'm only have 1 year and I'm halfway through, or about a third of the way through getting that done.
So it sounds like we've got the in-house bookkeeper who can help us do some of the cleanup. So you've already got her on board.
Right.
What is it that absolutely has to be done by you? Because I get that she doesn't know the transactions yet, but with a little bit of training, that's her job. She could figure that out.
And maybe that's what I need to do is we both come in on Saturday mornings, because that's kind of when we also go over the billing every week. And so, we get out the bills for the week coming up and any hourly billing, which there's not that much left on Saturdays. And then she works in the evenings and that. So I guess we could take a Saturday morning and I can have her where we go through a couple months together and she can watch me take notes, and then I can maybe go back. Maybe that's probably the best way to do it, to get it off of my shoulders to be able to do that.
I think so. I think the highest and best use of your time is not trying for you to go in and code these entries. But if you can spend 2 or 3 hours training her to do it, getting her set up to be able to go forward and do it, even if that ends up taking too long and you had to hire like another person, I mean, I'd rather other people do that and your time is spent doing only those things that you can do.
Okay. And then I'll do the same thing with the trust accounting too. I mean, it's still being hand done every month, but I want to get it up to date into trust books so that we can get that cleaned up too. So it's just frustrating.
I know.
I would say that's probably the most important project right now, just because of it's looming out there. I like to have my books in order. And it's my fault that I didn't catch that things were, it's just, things got busy over the fall, and all of a sudden I looked and I went sometime in November. I'm like, wait, I haven't gotten any reports. What the heck's going on? And then that's when Christina and I sat down to go over everything. And she's like, well, I can just do it. We can get rid of the other. And when I called them to tell them, and I'm like, by the way, why haven't we heard from so-and-so? And he's like, oh, yeah, he left. And then I went on LinkedIn and looked that he left like in September. I'm like, nobody told me. Thanks. So, like I said, I got to pay attention to that more. But now it's all back in-house. So, and I'm hopefully not having to do it. So, because I just, don't want to spend my weekends doing accounting. That's probably our biggest project to do. The other is, we got, like I said, the Clio and all that smooth out. The other last thing I really like to work on this quarter, and I'm putting the whole team together on, let's try to figure this out, is doing infographics. I actually posted on the lab. I think Ryan responded, is to do infographics and kind of give them in like their welcome packet or whatever, as they're actually asking what the process is for probate, or if we have to open a probate or wills, of doing their estate planning on what is the process or what is it. So I spent time the other day just kind of going through, Googling some different ones and saving them into OneNote to start some ideas. I'm familiar with Canva. My daughter, I think I told you, she does graphic design, so she's very familiar with Canva as well, and said that, she'll help me. She's like, you guys get the ideas, tell me what you want, give it to me, and then she'll build them out. So I've talked to everybody in the office, and I said, I'd rather have each of you, the legal assistants, each of you take your area of law and kind of put it how you want, and then we'll give it to Kristen to build out.
I love that. I'm a big fan of showing people information in pictures and graphics, because I do think it makes it easier to understand. Your daughter, a good designer, can take those ideas and put them into those pictures, and it's amazing. I love that you're doing that, and I think that will really help as you're doing that process and as you're working with Kristen and what it could look like. What I have found to be very effective is when people break down the process into different parts. And so maybe, I'm sure you can already probably even think of big buckets that the process fits in, but there's probably like the planning stage, and then we go into drafting mode and then review, or maybe there's gathering information, right? Like whatever the big buckets might be that the smaller steps are going to fall into. And we can think of either naming that time in the process, like investigation or review or whatever you want. You can give them more creative names than that. You can also color code them. So maybe the review process is purple. Then it becomes fun as we're updating clients. So you're giving them this thing in the beginning that shows them, okay, I'm going to start with the gathering of information. And that's, I'm in the yellow zone at that point. I have no idea what color gathering information should be. But then you could see how effective it would be that all your communications and updates that come out, are also branded with that same thing. So that's like, remember, you're still in yellow, and here's what that looks like. And as they move through the process, even their updates and communications change, so they can see, oh yeah, I see how we're progressing, and it feels like movement's happening on their cases.
I see what you're saying now. Okay. Is there any good place besides just Googling this stuff to get ideas?
So look outside our industry. I may have told this to you before. You may have heard me say this in lab. I think The Domino's pizza tracker is a fascinating tool because, you order this pizza and now the little thing comes up and it looks like a meter that goes left to right. And it tells you, your pizza's now been expertly crafted and prepared by one of our pizza makers. I mean, I don't know. They have really exciting verbiage that describes all of them. And like my daughter loves it because she's always like, where's the pizza now? Oh, it's in the oven, getting hot and bubbly. And then obviously we're waiting for when it goes out to delivery. And now we know it's almost here. So it's a silly but fun example of a different industry that's like communicating what's happening behind the scenes so that I, as a client, know they haven't forgotten about me. They are working on my stuff, which is really what you're trying to convey. So I've got some examples I can send you from a financial planner who did this with colors. Is kind of where I came up with the idea of like each color, was a different step in the process. And then the updates that come out follow that same pattern. So I can show you that. Well, I wouldn't get too bogged down into the picture. Your designer is going to be able to come up with fun things too. They're going to have more.
What we need to give to her is just kind of the steps or the information to put in there and then give her some examples and have her drop it in.
Yeah. And also I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to other Labster, Eric Pelton. He has started using a ton of infographics, not just with his clients, but actually in his marketing materials. So he's using infographics to explain what he does to people who might be interested. And he's doing trademark and I think mostly trademark law. He also did a lab workshop for us. I'll send you the link. But he did a whole workshop where we kind of explored how are you using these infographics? Where are you using them? How are you coming up with them? He went through the whole process because at this point he probably has like 100. A bunch of his are on his website. So if you go to, I think it's peltonlaw.com. So I feel like I should know that. But it's in our lab directory. So you could go to his website and he has a link on his website for just all his infographics. So he has them all in one place, but then you can start to see how he's using them in his Facebook feed and on Instagram. And he's using them in lots of different places to remind people what he does and why they should call him.
Oh, that's great. Great place to start. Going back, those are probably the two biggest goals of the first half of the year is to get that stuff and, of course, to continue to get work out the door on a timely manner. So our estate planning seems to be flowing better with getting the work out the door to people, and the clients seem to be using the e-portal better. With the infographics, I think one of the things we want to do, too, is give them an instruction of how to use the e-portal. It's not that it's that difficult, but...
No, I love that. That might be a good place to use a video where you're doing a screen recording and pretend like you're the client and you go into the portal and be like, and you can even just narrate the steps. And now I'm going to click here and I'll move here. And then that's a really easy way to record videos and give people information.
Now, what would be the best way to how to technically do that?
Yeah, so we've been experimenting at Lawyerist using a new product. I was using an old tool, but I found this one and it's actually less expensive, which is nice. It's called Loom, Loom, Loom Video, and it allows you to record yourself or yourself and your screen or just your screen, and you just plug in a microphone into your computer, use your headphones, and there's a free version that gives you a ton of features, which is nice. The paid version allows you to you can trim your videos, so you can kind of do some basic editing that even I can do, right? Like I don't need to send my videos off to anyone, but I'm like, oh, I can cut out the first 4 seconds of the video where I'm trying to figure out how to push start or something silly. I guess that usually happens at the end because it gives you a little warning, like it'll give you a countdown, 3, 2, 1, record. And then at the very end, I'm always like, okay, now where's the stop button?
What am I supposed to hit?
Exactly. So it allows you to trim that out very easily. And so we've used that to record. Jennifer, our community manager, has used that tool to record some videos for you guys. I don't know if you've seen it, but here's how you use your lab portal. And remember, this is where all the things are. So another way to use that same tool is I record personal videos to folks. Sometimes if I haven't heard from someone in a while, or even during the sales cycle, I'll be like, hey, it's Stephanie. And, it was great connecting with you. How's it going? You just record a personal video message for them instead of leaving them a voicemail or sending them another email. It's an easy tool if you want to start incorporating some videos into your marketing with the upgraded version that's still like $100 a year. So it's pretty reasonable. With that paid version, you can also put a call to action link in your video. So, if you wanted the schedule an appointment now link, it could come up right at the end of the video and they could schedule.
Okay, we'll have to explore that.
Yeah, don't get sucked down into I feel like as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, new shiny toys. So,
yeah, I know. Suck down the rabbit hole of yeah, exactly. Trying not to do too much new things until, we used to be able to say the summer calms down around here, but I don't think anybody goes home anymore. They like the sunshine too much and stay, which is good. Like I said, we opened up 31 new files in 31 days of January, which is insane. Yeah.
Which kind of leads me to when we spoke last quarter, one of the things you were looking at was doing some better data capture of KPIs related to your marketing efforts so that we were looking at, where is your marketing most effective and what should you be focusing on? And I just want to check in and see how's that going?
Yeah, we're not doing a super good job of keeping track of that like we should. That's one of the things we have to. It is being put into Clio Grow where they're coming from, but going back in and putting in the flat rate, because most of them are flat rate, the flat rate value back into Clio Grow. We haven't been doing that. But looking at where they're coming from a couple of, resource centers and that, because we do elder law, of course. So resource centers, they're coming from quite a bit, as well as former clients. And then our Google has really picked up. So we've been doing, through the marketing company that we hire, they've been doing more of, on our Google page, there's like a little, kind of like what was on what is still on our Facebook page and that, but it's also on our Google page. And then what do they stay for about, 5 or 7 days or something like that? And then they go away and then they bring another one on. So that seems to be really helping and picking up. So that has been well worth having somebody doing our internet marketing, because I just don't have time to do it. So the outsourcing of that has been really well worth it.
We need to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Part of building a successful practice is finding the right payment partner. It's important to work with a processor that understands the complex rules for legal payments. LawPay is the only payment solution that ensures trust account compliance for both credit card and e-check transactions. Trust the only payment solution offered through the ABA Advantage program and all 50 state bars. LawPay. To learn more or to get started, visit lawpay.com/lawyerist today. Support for today's episode comes from Back Office Betties, the only virtual receptionist service exclusively dedicated to small law firms that offers a plan with unlimited calls. Their highly specialized service boasts customized call handling, relentlessly friendly team members, and unmatched quality. The Betties are ready to help you grow your firm, even when you're out of the office. Visit www.backofficebetties.com/lawyerist to try them out for 1 week free. Use promo code PODCAST to receive $150 off your first month. Boost your productivity and save time typing with TextExpander, whether you're in the office or working from home. You can make your own snippets or share and manage snippets for your organization with your team's version, even if your team works from home. You'll reduce errors and increase productivity. TextExpander can save you so much time, it's like getting an extra employee. TextExpander is available for Mac, Windows, iPhone, iPad, and Chrome. And our listeners get 20% off their first year. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more about TextExpander.
Let's recap and go over your marching orders. So you're going to connect with the in-house bookkeeper, get her trained on the accounting cleanup work. I think the other thing you should do, we didn't talk about this, but hearing what you just said, let's calendar a date that recurs every month for bookkeeping review or accounting review, and this could be a separate entry, a separate date. Marketing analysis, that outside marketing firm should absolutely be giving you monthly reports.
They do.
Okay, good. And just to have a reminder on your calendar, so if something happens and you're like, where are my reports this month? You have that reminder of, oh yeah, this is due. So we don't get into another situation where it's the missing bookkeeper for 2 months. So it doesn't have to be a huge, big system, right? Just that calendar reminder that recurs every month on the 15th or whatever the date you want to set is, will be that trigger of looking at it and reviewing it. And if you want to go another step further, you could block out an hour each month, knowing when you're going to review those reports.
Okay.
I will send you the infographic examples that I mentioned. Also, the workshop we did with Eric on infographics, that's in the lab portal, but I'll send you a link so it's easy to find. And you guys are going to continue to map out what all the steps and the processes look like so you can give them to Christine and she can make them amazing in infographic form. And the bookkeeper project, we didn't put a timeline on that. I feel like you guys got to get in there a little bit, get her trained, and then let her do a few weeks and see how fast she's going. And then we can put some parameters around that, although I suspect you'll be able to train her fairly quickly. Is that something you'll do this week?
Yes.
Perfect. And the infographic project, are we aiming for this to be a Q1 finished?
Or at least to get started. I would say end of April.
So when will your team get its pieces to the designer?
I would say by March 1st.
All right. That gives her a good 2 months then to hopefully turn it around. And marketing is on track. And the only thing to do there is make sure we're reviewing our marketing metrics that we're getting and start looking at making sure that we're capturing where all the leads are coming from. At a minimum, we need that data going forward, but let's not take on any additional projects there. We'll talk soon. Check in with me if you need anything, but I'll check in with you as well.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
You too. Bye. The Lawyers Podcast is produced by Laura Briggs and edited by Christopher Ng. Are you ready to implement the ideas we discuss here into your practice? Wondering what to do next? Well, here are your first 2 steps. If you haven't read the Small Firm Roadmap yet, grab the first chapter for free right now at lawyers.com/book. Next, if you're looking for help beyond the book, then let's chat about whether our coaching communities are right for you. Head to lawyers.com/community to schedule a 15-minute call with our community manager. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not endorsed by Legal Talk Network. Nothing said in this podcast is legal advice for you.